Welcome back to our course on Frank Lloyd Wright. In the first part, we saw some of the patterns that are in the work of Andrea Palladio, and we discussed some other architects that were using them. And now we have Louis Kahn, who is one of the most important American modern architects. So what about the work of Louis Kahn? What do we find typical and recurring in his projects?
Right. So Kahn's first important buildings is, we won't go into the official title, we architects call it the Medical Towers. So it's a laboratory building at the University of Pennsylvania, and he did it in reaction to or against the architecture of Mies van der Rohe. And so around the same time as the Medical Towers, Mies did the Seagram Building. Not the first, but an early glass skyscraper in New York, 1958. And it's not articulated. So Kahn looked at it and said, you know, it's got elevator shafts, water pipes, drainage, on and on and on, electrical conduits, etc. You don't see them. And so he designed his building so that it would show us what's going on. So here's the building, and we've got this series of laboratory pavilions. Here's the structure, and then right next to the structure are these towers, which are either fire stairs or air ducts. Now, here's how he arrives at that. He starts with two parts to science. There is the red dot is the research. He calls it measurement. And then he says the scientist takes the results of measurements and goes to the light, which is the surrounding area, which is their desk, and they sit there and work on their notes and think about what they're doing. And then that needs to be served. We have to get in and out. We need fire stairs. We need air conditioning ducts. So those are these orange things. And then we have three of these, and they share common space. So he's built up this building with this pattern. His next building was for Jonas Salk, who developed the polio vaccine, the Salk Centre in La Jolla, California. Beautiful building on a magnificent site on the cliffs over the Pacific Ocean. And here we have the laboratory spaces, and then these blocks on the back of it are stairs, toilets, and elevators. And then these forms in here are the offices for the scientists. So we have the same elements, but arranged differently. Here are what was just the perimeter of the laboratory space in the medical towers is now these beautiful concrete and teak offices diagonally looking out toward the Pacific Ocean. So you're real lucky if you get one of these, if you're one of the research scientists. And then behind that are the laboratories and mechanical. So, and here it is. So here's this plan, and we have the laboratories in red, familiar. The teal is the offices for the researchers. The blue is the mechanical, and then services here. So we've got the same, okay, let's back up. Kahn uses the terms form and design. So form is the underlying conceptual organization of the building. Design is the way it's actually laid out. So these buildings share the same form, but they have totally different designs. So here the pattern is not in repeated shapes, but in this particular kind of underlying organization. So something to think about, what does Kahn mean by form and design? We mentioned earlier in this course, we referred to Louis Sullivan and his notion of form and function. We'll refer to that again in two more weeks. And so Kahn, Sullivan, and Wright all address this idea, form, and design, underlying conceptual organization, and the way you actually carry it out.
So how do you think Kahn relates to Frank Lloyd Wright? No, they were two of the most important, if not the two most important modern architects in the United States. So do you think that Kahn was looking at Wright? Do you think he learned something from him, or what was their relationship?
Well, I just happened to be a student in the day, and one of my classmates said to Louis Kahn, what about the influence of the Frank Lloyd Wright's Larkin Building on your medical towers that we just saw? And Kahn's response was, the Larkin Building? I don't think I know that building. Kahn did not like Frank Lloyd Wright. And now, one of the books we recommended for this course was McCarter's book on Frank Lloyd Wright. McCarter also did a book on Louis Kahn. And in the Kahn book, he goes into great detail showing very strong similarities. Another book we recommended for this course was a little book by Vincent Scully, and he also, in his book on Kahn, shows these patterns of similarity. Whether they're influence or just because they were following the same path, you can think about. There was probably some influence, but it was so strong that Kahn was not going to admit it.
Interesting. Thank you.
So next we'll be looking at 3 key buildings by Frank Lloyd Wright that look very different, but they all share the same pattern.